Hello. Next, I'd like to introduce our first presenter of the day, dear friend of the KFA, John Duncan, who is our former librarian. John has also facilitated programs for the KFA and has been deeply involved in Krishnamurti's teachings for many years. Welcome, John.
Thank you. How's my volume? Good? Okay. I just ran into Darcy. He told me to have fun, and that may be a case of be careful what you ask for. No groaning. But thanks for coming back on a Sunday. Today is a bit of a holy day. Does anybody know what day it is today? For some people, holy day. May the 4th be with you. Star Wars Day. And you took the time to come here. So you get a bit of trivia that a lot of you I know already know, but those of you that don't, it will blow your mind. So Star Wars, created by George Lucas, well known to be, to us anyway, to be very interested in Krishnamurti and his work. He had a TV show where he devoted the show to Krishnamurti in Benares, in the Theosophical Society, called Young Indiana Jones. I think he sent a unit down here to do a documentary. I haven't seen it. But anyway, one of the big memes or themes or cultural references that came out of that dozen or so movies now, I don't know how many there are, but is Jedi. The Jedi are the good guys. They're the ones who know more than the others, something deep, something special. And if you go on if you go on Wikipedia, you'll notice there's like 3 different references to where that comes from. They say, well, it's either a reference to a Japanese samurai movie genre, or it's a Hebrew word reference, or it's a Egyptian word reference. But we here at the KFA know it's a reference to Jiddu Krishnamurti. In the old days, the books, I'm not joking. Like if you look at some of the old books, like The Kingdom of Happiness, which was from like the 20s or something, and his name is on there, and it's Jeddu. After that, it was Jiddu, and this all still seems like a stretch, but I have actual third-hand information that will corroborate that. So there was a director who was visiting, apparently, famous director who's gone now. I won't say his name. It was David Lynch. Talking with one of our board members, and he sort of corroborated that was in fact the case. I don't know how he knew, but so anyway, all that and $5 will get you a cup of coffee in Ojai. Anyway, thanks for coming again. Why? Because I always feel like this weekend is going to be like trying too hard or a setup or a disappointment. I don't always think that, but I mean, that could be the case, but it's you guys, including me, us guys, and the interactions in between and during and all that just make it special every year. And I'm not being maudlin or pandering to you. I'm actually saying that. Almost like this is the way we should be living, It shouldn't be one separate weekend a year or something like that anyway. And maybe we will build something, who knows. So yeah, like now back to that Jiddu reference. In our dialogue yesterday, one of the young fellows I don't know if he's here or not. Why isn't he here? He should be here. He said, why isn't Krishnamurti more well known? Yada, yada, yada. And I said, well, I didn't. I said what I said, but now I'm thinking, if people knew they were back referencing Krishnamurti every time they said, hey man, that's a real Jedi kind of thing you did right there, they might say, hey, there's so many of them. Take a look into it a little bit and say, where did that come from? And check it out. So there's the big way to get Krishnamurti out there. So, there it is. Look at that. Meditation 2025.0, from here to now. And interestingly, at the 11th hour, I had a epiphany. And it's not the kind of epiphany you want to have at the 11th hour when you're going to give a talk. It was that whatever it was I had to tell you, you didn't really need to know. You don't need to know what meditation is. You just need to do it. And if you did that much, then much of what I say wouldn't mean that much to you. And I hope that's the case, actually. And if nothing else, we'll have some fun. But at the 11th and a half hour, I also had another epiphany, luckily, for me anyway. We'll see if for you. As I was sitting there at David Moody's panel discussion, and I heard myself saying, yeah, it's great to have a teacher to embody, to manifest the unmanifest right in front of you in his words, his actions, his body, his presence. And it helps to have a mentor. Blah, blah, blah. It helps to learn. So I thought, well, why would I say whatever I have to say won't be of any value to you? So I have switched. I've had two epiphanies that have canceled each other out. So with bits of Krishnamurti, bits of me and bits of you, we'll try to come up with something new about what is new about meditation. And let's start, a very serious topic indeed. Let's start with, what would meditation look like if it were a visual? That is a cat. That's a meditating cat. I don't think that's what meditation would look like. That is a Zen cat. And cats especially are prone to the exotic trappings of meditation. The silk, the bamboo, the incense, the occasional feathers. They don't go from here to now. They go from here to meow. Groan time. All right, that's not meditation. This is this is not meditation either. This is the meditation guy at the meditation retreat. He goes, yeah, I meditate. You meditate? Yeah, I meditate. 20 minutes, 3 times a day. Feels good, real good. So no, meditation is not a tool we use to take refuge in and hide and feel good about ourselves in. Meditation is actually the great equalizer. So with no further ado, I would say this is meditation. This is the back of your eyelids. This is the emptiness. This is, what do I have here? The unknown, unfettered, primal ground. Light can enter here, but it can only enter from the inside, not from the outside. And you don't necessarily even have to have your eyes closed. This is the place where the 2 dimensions do their little dance. It's the arena. The world is not out there. The world is in here. There's another well-known saying that if you could see as far out into the universe as you can, what would you see? You'd end up seeing the back of your head. The universe is round like that. It's whole. It's one movement. It's not any different at the next star system 4 light years away. It's not any different at the next nearest galaxy 2.5 million light years away. Don't we love astronomical numbers that blow our minds? Do you feel alone? The next galaxy is 2.5 million light years away. And we can see it in the sky, oddly enough, with our bare eyes. So, as I said, the great equalizer. There's no one in front, there's no one behind in meditation. It all leads to silence. It all leads inside. So, I don't know if you noticed, but I mentioned in there without any reference 2 dimensions. And that's going to be a big central theme of this talk, from here to now. Let's take a look. Oh, first, let's listen to Krishnamurti introduce that topic regarding meditation. Now I'm going to see if I can maximize this. Is there a way to maximize it with this, or is it with this? Okay.
Yes, I do.
That is, I'm inquiring in relation to meditation.
Yes, I do.
Other self-self. You follow, sir?
Yes, I do.
I'm inquiring in relation to meditation, which is the real spirit of religion. That is gathering all the energy to move from one dimension to totally different dimension, which doesn't mean divorce from this dimension. I don't know.
No, it's not like those monks going up the hill.
I've gone haywire here. I've lost my, oh, there it is. There it is. All right, sorry about that. I'll get it together here. Moving from one dimension to another. The dreaded graph or list. I'm not going to go through this list one by one, but these will pop up throughout the talk, hopefully poignantly. But, and I know these are words and these are ideas, but I think if we can use words to go through the word and not get hung up on them being rigid reality, or, rigid like this, then these are very instructive. So if you, for yourself, look down the list, you can probably figure out which one is the one you're going to want to partake in, the one you're going to want to live in. The dimension of here is one of time, thought, duality, noise, reaction. The dimension of now is timeless, self-aware, unmanifest, direct experience, non-duality, silence, and so forth. Heart, love. You'll see those come up later. If you were a Buddhist and you were asked which one is the one of the life of suffering and which one is the one of the life of awakening, it'd be pretty obvious. And if you were a Christian and you were asked which one is the Garden of Eden and which one is the place you were kicked out into, it'd be pretty obvious. And for our purposes, the way I want to present this is which one is a little outgrowth of the other one? Which one is kind of a mutant variation of the other one? Which one is a boil on the butt of the other one? Probably this one. And we're trying to get from here to there, or here to now, right? And it would be more appropriate actually to call them time and the timeless for what we're going to be talking about. But I enjoyed the pizzazz of saying from here to now versus from time to the timeless. It has more gusto. So where does that lead us? This is one of my favorite excerpts of Krishnamurti. I showed it last year, and it's even more relevant to what we're talking about this year. Going into why are there two dimensions? Let's see if I can do this without.
We have made life into a hideous thing. We have made life into a hideous thing, living. Life has become a battle, which is an obvious fact. Constant fight, fight, fight. And we have divorced that living from death. We separate death as something horrible, something to be frightened about. And we say, and to us this living, which is misery, is we accept. If we didn't accept this existence as misery, then life and death are the same movement. Like love, death, and living are one. One must totally die to find what love is.
And if we think of that in terms of dimensions,
we have made life into
God
a
Almighty.
hideous thing, living.
This is a schematic, which I created my own self, as you can tell, of what was just said. And it portrays the dimension of timelessness. This is a bunch of stars which kind of represent the interaction of life and death. One movement. And in their sort of annihilation, the release of energy is love, the hearts. I'm going to scoot ahead one and talk about that real quick. This is the definition. When matter and antimatter collide, they undergo a process called annihilation. This is in physics, you know. This results in the complete conversion of their combined mass into energy, a reaction so energetic that it's considered the densest form of energy release we know of. So in this way of looking at it, you could say, well, life and death aren't matter. But with physics today, we can just call it dark matter. And the release of energy, we can call that dark energy. I'm not saying that's right if you're a physicist, but I'm saying it. So in this dimension, or how things are, love is not a constant. It's not a version of its former self, but it is constant, ever new. The offspring of the continuous annihilation of life and death in each moment. It's the act of creation. It has no duration per se, but nonetheless exists eternally, always new. This moment has never existed before in the history of history. I say, does it feel that way? The dimension of timelessness. Now, the dimension of time. Does it look different? A little bit? What is different is this red line and the smiley faces and the death bubble there. So what's what has occurred. There's a constant now, a continuity, in where before there was no continuity. It's no longer the ever new, it's me, 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 me. And how did this happen? Thought created time. It brought the past, this is now talking about the formation of our identity, into the present, created a solid identity. It replaced, because of a continuity, then it replaced love, which is not a constant, with sensation, experience. And because it keeps death at a distance in the future, the mutual annihilation never takes place. You see how this is formulaic, but at the same time can be grokked as meaningful, I hope. That's my intent. It's not supposed to be just a bunch of words. So life and death do not meet for the me. It knows that if death is allowed in the present, as it was in the other one, it would perish, the me would perish, because death is the end of continuity. So it doesn't live with death, we don't live with death. Instead, we live with the fear of death in the future. This is the origin of conflict. Division is the origin of conflict. This division which negates our access to the true meaning of life, which is love. Like now pops into my head the Emily Dickinson quote, "All we know about love is all there is." So in this dimension, in this reality, the me is constantly insecure, fearful, knowing that death is waiting for it. It's also a fragment desiring the love it cannot have, and yet it holds on to itself in the face of these facts, afraid to meet death. It has created psychological time. It does not realize that by doing so, it has created the source of its fear, and its will, the will, tells it not to resist allowing death into the present. Or to resist allowing death in the present, sorry. This is time as the enemy, as Kay put it. Time is the enemy. But he also finished that statement by saying, meet it and go beyond it. And you meet time in meditation. Does that set it up? Okay, more on the two dimensions.
So
Good God, why did that
content
start?
of consciousness is its
I'm coming off as a noob here. And whatever. Play the video first.
content. Therefore, there is no division as consciousness separate from its content. I can extend or widen the consciousness laterally or horizontally, horizontally or vertically, but it is still within that field. I can extend it saying God is immense. That's my belief. And I've extended my consciousness by imagining that it is extended. Whatever thought has created in the world and inside me is the content.
I have a graphic of that and all the stuff around it that's not supposed to be there. Does anybody know what this is? Picture of? Sorry? No. This is an eddy. An eddy this is a river. And an eddy is something that occurs in a river when there's like a boulder. See the boulder? And around it, a whirlpool forms, right? And it's no longer part of the moving river, if you get the metaphors here. It's its own dimension. It's its own reality at this point. And the only way for this to get unstuck is not to widen itself like the video just said. It can't escape itself unless the boulder goes away. And the boulder, it represents the me, of course. But it exists as a boil on the butt of the dimension of timelessness. The river, see, it's part of the river, but not part of the river. So that was the dimension of time, the video clip. This video clip is describing the dimension of timelessness.
Then what is religion? Religion is not what I think, but religion is this sense of comprehension of the totality of existence, in which there is no division between you and me. Then, if there is that quality of goodness, which is virtue, real virtue, not this phony virtue of society, real virtue, then the mind can go beyond and find out through meditation, through a deep, quiet silence, it can find out if there is such thing as reality. And therefore, a religious mind is a mind that is constantly aware, sensitive, attentive, so that it goes beyond itself into a dimension where there is no time at all.
Was it too jangly? Into a dimension where there's no time at all, through meditation. So, remember I had the list of the two dimensions with the words and all of that? This is where we get into what is that meditation then that will lead us to a dimension where there's no time at all. This is one of the bookmarks which you've probably seen or have lying around, or maybe they're here, they give them away. And what does it say? In the red, I've highlighted things that you'll see on the right side of that list, the dimension of timelessness. When the heart enters the mind, the heart. Meditation is the movement of love. We begin from the other end, the other shore. All these things, you would think at first or somewhat naturally that, well, I've got this problem over here, I got to work on it over here. I got to end. But kind of like that first video said, whatever you do here just either widens it or contracts it, or adds to the boulder, or, it's not. And then your mind kind of goes, okay, well, I have to start from the other shore. I know for myself, I go, how the heck does that happen? Nonetheless, there it is, and we will go into it. And the rest of this you can read for yourself. I don't want to have to be going through a lot of text. So kind of to wrap up everything, not wrap up, I'm not done, but so far that we've said, this and this kind of teases the next little piece, insight, perception. And this is about 6 minutes long, so it's going to test your patience.
Let us together find out not a way, not a verbal indication, not an intellectual verbal concept. Let's find out together if there is a way I'm sorry, if there is a perception, an action that will end conflict, not gradually, end it immediately. You understand my question? Please first understand the question. What are the implications of that question? The brain being programmed or wired, programmed to conflict. It is caught in that pattern. You can see it for oneself. And we are asking if that pattern can be broken immediately, not gradually. Either you think to break it through drugs, through alcohol, through sex, through different forms of discipline, through different forms of handing oneself over to something. Man has tried 1,000 different ways to escape from this terror of conflict. Right? And we are asking, is it possible for a brain so conditioned to break that conditioning immediately? Right? This is maybe a theoretical, non-actual question. Which that's impossible. It's just a theory. It's just a wish, a desire to be free of this. But if you examine the thing rationally, logically, which is part of our intelligence, time will not solve this conditioning, right? That's the first thing to realize. Not tomorrow. There is no psychological tomorrow. I won't go into that for the moment. I'm just saying that implies time. If one sees actually, not verbally, deeply in one's heart, in one's mind, in one's very, very depth of one's being, time will not solve this problem. That means you have already broken the pattern, beginning to see the cracks in the pattern, because we have accepted time, right, as a means of unraveling, breaking up this programmed brain. So when you observe clearly that time under no circumstance will free the brain from time. We mean by time, as it is now conditioned, programmed, I will examine it, make efforts to break it, uncondition it. All that process involves time, right? So when you do that, you are caught in the same pattern. You have not moved away from it. Right? But once you clearly for yourself see, absolutely, irrevocably, that time is not a fact, then already you begin to see the cracks in the wall in the enclosure of the brain, right? Are you doing it now?
So, to recap, obviously he's talking about starting from the other shore. Is that clear? Like, which is a reason people say, well, why doesn't Krishnamurti have a method? He was saying everything you've tried in time doesn't escape time. Those are the methods. Do this, do that. He's calling for insight, perception, seeing, which is not an action that you undertake. It's an action from the dimension of timelessness. It's something that he can't give you. He can only suggest that you have one and try to say as clearly as he can how that might come about for you. It almost sounds sort of, this is the best I can tell you, kind of thing. And then it's up to your own seriousness about it. So it's definitely pointing towards not effort, which is of this dimension, but non-effort, which is of this dimension, timelessness and attention.
Let us together.
So, really, what is meditation and how does it meet time and go beyond it? So this is the clubhouse turn here. And a 1 and a 2 and a 3. 1. Does this seem like a 3-step process, a method? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see how it plays out. I'm not even sure at this point.
I know I'm attached. I've listened to you, listened to your logic, your clarity. That's perfectly true. But at the end of it, I'm still holding on.
Do you?
Just listen. I'm still holding on. That's all I know. Please listen. That's all I know. I'm not interested in ending it. I'm just holding on to that. I see I'm holding on. I won't ask why I'm holding on, but I am that.
I don't think that needs any further explanation or commentary, does it? Pretty clear? Non-movement, non-effort. But I see that I'm angry. Often in this scenario, I will judge my anger. Like, oh, dang, I don't want to be angry, or anger is screwed up, but thought is aware of its condition. But in this case, he's saying, do nothing. Don't judge even. Don't fix. Seeing it, flat observation.
I know I'm attached.
One of these days I'm going
I've listened to you.
to go into this
Listen to your
technological
logic,
stuff. So that was seeing the false as the false and nothing more. Step 2 in the non-method method is seeing the true in the false.
The analyzer is the analyzed.
Yes, we're back to the observer and
Obviously,
observed word.
I am analyzing my anger. Who is the analyzer? Part of the fragment which is anger. So the analyzer pretends to be different from the analyzed. But when I see the truth that the analyzer is the analyzed, then the totally different action takes place. Then there is no conflict between the analyzer and the analyzed. There is instant action, a perception, which is the ending and going beyond the what is.
Again, calling towards the anatomy almost of seeing. No effort. Seeing is the actual action, but it's one is enabled to see when the conflict between the analyzer and the analyzed, effort, judgment, it ceases, meaning there's no longer a duality there of experiencer and experience. I'm experiencing my anger and all the fineries of it. Don't like it, I like it. There is one thing happening, and when there's one thing happening, the nature of consciousness itself is perception. When there's two things happening, the nature of consciousness is experience and time and duration. That's what he means by the ending and the going beyond what is. What is me and my anger. Going beyond that is the perception. The anger was the problem, but the duality was the actual conflict, the division, as we stated earlier. Finally, I'll probably start this again. Yeah. Step 3. So that was the true and the false previously. And now, stepping back on that for a moment, in the true and the false, getting beyond the what is, perception is also awareness of what is aware. I'm not just aware of anger and things. I'm also getting a glimpse for an instant. For that one little instant, I have that flash of awareness itself. Not just awareness of something, like of thought or of anger. So, as one continues to learn and deeper and deeper and deeper, one realizes maybe it's possible to have awareness without the necessity of having it to do work for me to expose what is, or my duality, or my conflict. And what would that be like?
Silence is something which comes naturally when you're watching. When you're watching without motive, without any kind of demand. Just to watch and see the beauty of a single star in the sky. Or to watch a single tree in a field. Or to watch your wife or husband, whatever you watch. To watch with great silence and space. Then in that watching, in that alertness, then there is something that which is beyond words, beyond all measure. We use words to measure the immeasurable. So one must be aware also of the network of words. How words cheat us. How words mean so much. A communist to a capitalist means something terrible. Socialist, or some stranger. For words become extraordinarily important. But to be aware of those words, and to weigh the words, to weigh to live with the word silence, knowing that the word is not silence, but to live with that word and see the weight of that word, the content of the word, the beauty of that word. So one begins to realize when thought is quiet, watching, if there's something beyond all imagination, doubt, and seeking, and there is such thing, at least for the speaker. But what the speaker says has no validity to another unless you listen, learn, watch, be totally free from all the anxieties of life.
I think that was self-explanatory as well. I don't know. This is a one-sentence phrase that I also showed last year, but which Krishnamurti, when asked to sum up his teachings in one sentence or one phrase, came up with this. And I think it sums up pretty well what we've talked about here today in terms of what it means, having created a dimension of time and feeling like a prisoner, what it means to, A, first realize that, and B, not get in the way of the transcendental shift of dimensions from time to timeless. But there's a sticky part, of course, and it's the second part. To attempt without effort, I think we've gone into that. To live with death, going back to the schematic, to bring death back into the present rather than be stuck in the future. And to live with death. Most people go to that point and go, okay, I'm good. Because better the devil I know than the devil I don't know. In timeless silence, the other shore. So, nothing works. That's supposed to blacken the screen. I'll leave it there, it's okay. So that's as many words as I can use to explain it, and I'm not going to sum it up. I think it's someone's phone. If you're interested in it, you'll have gotten it, or you'll go back and watch it again. But other than to say that meditation is really then about doing nothing, the black screen, other than listening, learning, and all the other things that come from the other shore. And the body at that point then is a vessel, not for a me, but a vessel that houses the energy of life, of creation. And I, or we, if we need a pronoun, are that. So whether it takes 40 years or 40 lifetimes or 4 seconds, the distance is always the same between the two dimensions from here to now. If you get it when you get it, it is now. It doesn't come from this dimension of time, it comes from now. There's no time interval in that. There was no path from where you were to now. Right from the beginning, it is here as now. Does that stimulate the brain towards insight or perception? No one knows. It's very hard to teach insight and perception. It's not an end and a new beginning. It's a dimensional shift to one of no time, freedom at the first step, always now. It is like a birthright redeemed, like a princess or a prince waiting for the king to die. The birthright is always there. And for us, it's like waiting for the ego to die. But we can't do that ourselves. The boulder can't get rid of the boulder. We can't murder our ego. We can't suicide it. We can't perfect it and take it along with us. And when I say waiting, waiting is the wrong word. We are meditating. And if it takes 40 years or 40 lifetimes or 4 seconds, it only happens now. It's like a dream when you wake up. The dream you've been having about, I'm at the airport and I lost my luggage. I can't find it anywhere. I'm in a war and an army is advancing on me. I've had all these. What else? You haven't done your homework for school, something like that. And you wake up and it's over. That's it. That's time and the timeless. That's their relationship. So yes, I say profanely, we just got to expunge the dimension of time. The one we created, which torments us, each in our own little world. 8 billion of us, smiley little faces from the graph, with our own separate lonely little worlds, seeking connection. Some join groups, such as races, nations, and religions. And yes, we've done a good job of making it comfortable here on the outside. We've done a good job of fixing things here on the outside, or learning how to fix things. We've done a good job of learning about the universe. And absolutely none of that will fix what's going on inside of us. Self-knowledge through meditation, as we have discussed, is the wisdom that witnesses that transcendental dimensional shift in consciousness, from time to the timeless, from sensation to sensitivity, from noise to silence, from here to now. And that is different than the intelligence of science and social revolution. And it really doesn't take all these words, pictures and graphs. It's up to you. And I did write that before somebody else said Kay said it's up to you before yesterday, so I'm not cheating on that. But it's up to you. Is the world out there or is the world in here? Is it 8 billion tiny little voices crying out that we still find interesting? Are we interested? Are we content with content? Or have we discovered something new inside to listen to? Does it all lead to silence? Does it all lead inside? Ego requires noise. It doesn't exist without it. And where there is emptiness, silence, there is joy. That's as plainly and bold-faced as I can put it. And it's up to you to decide. Our greatest lesson, ultimately then, is to let joy take the place of struggle. And it seems easy enough, and now is the time. And I'm going to give the last word, as I do, to Krishnamurti.
Therefore, sir, all this comes to a sense of deep inward seriousness. And that seriousness itself brings about attention, care, and responsibility in all that we discussed. It isn't that one has gone through all this. One sees it. And the very perception is action, which is wisdom. Because wisdom is the ending of suffering. It isn't carelessness, it's the ending of it. The ending of it means the observation, the seeing of suffering, not to go beyond it, refuse it, rationalize it, or run away from it, just to see it, live it, let it flower. And as you're choicelessly aware of this flowering, it comes naturally to wither away. I don't have to do something about it.
Marvelous, marvelous how energy can be free to pattern itself or not pattern itself. The pattern is free to be energized, or the whole thing is simply all round.
Yes, it covers the whole of man's endeavor, his thoughts, his anxiety, everything covers.
So in our conversations, all through, we have reached a point of consummation here,
Yes.
where
The whole,
it is round. I wonder if Shakespeare had some intimation of this when he said ripeness is all. He must have been thinking of that not simply as setting a term
and
to
also,
the career
sir,
of a fruit.
time comes to an end. Time stops. So in silence, time stops.
In silence, time stops.
Good.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. We're going to do that thing. What time is it?
Can we start?
11:30.
Okay.
Hello, hello.
It's not perfect
Testing,
timing.
testing.
Right. Yeah. So yes, this is going to be a short panel. We have lunch at 12. So, and we will, at some point, we will just have that microphone in the stand in the for you. If anybody of you want to comment or have questions for us. And also we have the online audience that also they ask questions from time to time.
Yes, if you're watching the live stream, please enter your questions in the live chat.
Yeah, one thing that it always goes back to, at least for me, to this paradoxical situation. Kay mentioned words is like trying to measure the immeasurable, right? And here we are talking about talking and going back to words. So it's a very interesting exercise to how to maybe use words in a way that somehow, what would be the right way of using words? Maybe that's maybe the question.
Mm-hmm. That is art, poetry, painting, using color to, I don't know. And the easy answer is, he and Bohm talked about going through the word, having the word dissolve in the middle of it to have got you there. Right. And that the most profane thing seems to be talking about silence, But you can get around that by saying, well, we're getting us to silence, and then silence has its own sounds, its own domain of communication that we will not talk about. That's where you stop, the music of the spheres or whatever happens in that, which truly cannot be expressed. But you can get yourself to that threshold with words, I feel.
Yeah, and of course Krishnamurti was also using words, so there is something to it, and maybe there is something about using them as a pointer as opposed to, but that might be in the listener as well, how you are receiving what's being said. And I feel like the teachings are also pointing at something else. Of course, it's not about the teachings. The teaching seems to be also pointing at that has no words.
John, would you say that there's a difference in almost communicating and using words in a way that's conveying what I already know? And are you suggesting in the talk that there is a way to use words, and are the words expressing some other quality? Like, would you say, even though we might not be able to know this, we may be able to communicate from the silence or from love? Or would you say you don't see it that way? Words are, in a sense, always are coming, in a sense, from conditioning.
I would say that communication involves two, not always two people. Sometimes you're writing stuff down, I guess, but you're communing with yourself or within. But that primarily what you're doing is you're listening to the moment. You're speaking from listening. Like, I remember when in my 20s, I did not have that ability. I would say, I know exactly what I'm feeling, but I cannot express it. And I'm sure many people have had that experience, And it's very frustrating, but at the same time, you have something going on in you which you can relate to. You just can't relate it to anybody else. And I think just maturation, I'm not sure, but you listen to that long enough and it starts to take some kind of shape or some kind of, you see it well enough that you can share it with words, approximately. That's So it has an element of relationship, has an element of maturation, an element of heart, listening especially.
Yeah, also maybe an awareness of our relationship to those symbols, which are the words.
Yeah, that have the vocabulary.
For myself, I often feel that those symbols, the words, they seem neutral, or it's just like, this is just life. But I'm not always aware that, oh yeah, these are symbols that are pointing to something. So I've got kind of two questions. I'm wondering what it means to meditate without a goal or without this motive of arriving somewhere, because I think that's where a lot of us start. And the second part of that was, is it possible to have a meditative mind while you're in the middle of suffering or conflict? Or do you have to get rid of that first and then meditate? But then, if you're trying to get rid of that, is that a motive? How does one, like I really...
I don't know how you would get rid of it. We just discussed, you can't get rid of it from that side. So yes, the second part, that again is that fear is the extraordinary jewel aspect of it. It calls attention, to itself, but also to attention, to attend. And if you don't get involved, if you don't manipulate or hate it or, try to get rid of it, again, as he put it pretty well in that last little clip, that is meditation. It doesn't have to be on silence only or in a dark room with, like the cat.
Yeah.
And what was the first thing?
It was more about, what does it mean to meditate without that motive or a goal? Or, I think that's the cat in the lotus position, cross-legged, is the ideal, right? Or sometimes that some of us think of, what is true meditation? But is it really? And if you already have that ideal, are
if
you
you're
really
doing,
meditating?
like Kay would say, or much you, like we all think, or we don't all think, a lot of people come to me, like I've talked to a lot of people, say, "Oh, Kay said not to meditate." What I feel like he said was, if you're doing meditation, that's not it. If meditation is doing you, that's meditation. So that's sort of the difference. And what makes the difference is you do it wrong until you do it right, or you understand that and allow that thing to move in you, and you start to be able to attend not only to your uncomfortableness or your fidgetiness, but also to a totally different movement. The call of the other shore or something you might call it, but it's actually a movement.
Yeah, it feels to me that maybe what's the movement, let's say, maybe it's something that I don't do, but by watching where I'm getting involved, like by watching where I'm actually putting forward my agenda, my projections, and if that stops, then maybe that other thing can happen. The other shore maybe can speak, but the reality is, I can see that all the time, right? I'm almost telling reality how to be. I like this, I don't like this, I need to change this. So it's a constant conversation that is mainly one way, and then probably there are some cracks when you feel that
an interesting addition to that is back to the story from last year of the Buddha. Some people think, well, he had this, insight about not being an ascetic anymore, and he just got up, had some rice, and sat under the tree, and boom, he was enlightened. But as the historical, mythical retelling of it actually goes, he sat under the tree and practiced choiceless awareness. He found every little, like you were just saying, nook and cranny of escape and delusion in his mind for years. I don't know how long it was, and nobody does probably, but that's what he did, and that was his meditation until it became that final bit where he crossed the line and he lived with death, brought death back in. But prior to that, it was doing everything you just said, and it wasn't different then. It wasn't behind or ahead of what he should have been doing.
Right.
It was what is.
I think Henry's going to say something.
Yeah, you look like you want to
He's
say
trying
something.
Well, I was wondering from what we were talking about, in the eddy, you talked about the boulder, and the last talk you used that Kay you included there, he was talking about flowering, right? So my question really was, and you mentioned the Buddha too under the tree here. What is it that's flowering? Because usually that would mean, I'm going to deal with this anxiety and that anxiety. I have to let all these nooks and crannies, expose themselves. And maybe there's truth to that. That seems like a long process. And that's usually how we think of this long period of practice, right? That the nooks and crannies in us are my psychological fears, the individual ones I had. I'm going to work on them, and they're going to flower. Is that how you see Krishnamurti talking about flowering? And what is it that's flowering? What is flowering?
Freedom. The freedom at the first step doesn't include only the dimension of timelessness. It includes allowing what is to be free, which it means, again, back to this constant theme of not judging it. Krishnamurti's whole actually methodical teaching is the quality of observation, which is really inactive. So it's not really an action you can partake. It's things you don't do with your observation. You don't judge, you don't condemn, you don't do this. And then whatever is inside you is free from the tyranny of yourself, including all the nooks and crannies we've been talking about. Then it can flower, and in its flowering, as that other video said, perception also flowers with it. It's kind of the movement of unity when there's not a me and my problem creating conflict, is the flow of consciousness, which is self-aware anyway, but in this instance, you'd be self-aware of whatever it was, what the content in your mind. It would be lit up, illuminated, but that is also perception at the same time, and there's a whiff of perception in that. That's how you kind of get a feel, those little moments, like when you're just turning your head and all of a sudden, what was that? And if you're really interested in it, it gets, you just nurture it somehow.
So we've got about 15 minutes left. So I'd like to invite the in-person audience to start lining up if you have any questions. While we're waiting for them, I wanted to see if you'd be interested in answering a question from AI.
There's none from the chat?
There are.
Please no.
I can go. I
Are
can
there any
read them
snarky
first.
ones
We want
Maybe.
from the chat?
Leave that to the end.
Snarky ones?
Yeah.
Those chat guys.
There's a microphone back there.
Yes, one thing that I want to say, sorry, but I always say it is like we need to keep it short. It's fine, a question or a comment, because we have more questions from the audience, and we all tend to expand. But if we keep it short, everybody's happy.
Certainly, thank you. Hi, I'm Sam. My question is, what's the main goal of meditation? We talk about lots of buzzwords and lots of things, but if we have to teach a little boy or a girl, high school or junior school, to an oldest person, why we meditate? Where it takes us? Is it finding beyond the realm we exist, or break the all authority society, family put on us, and free ourselves in a journey to ultimate void?
Ultimate void? Okay. Hopefully kids don't have to meditate. Maybe they haven't yet separated death from life as much, or but if they have, then I certainly hope meditation would be brought forth in a very similar way than some kind of mood-altering behavior or conflict resolution, which I think it probably is in the terms of the mindfulness stuff that goes on in schools, but I'm not real familiar with that, so I won't insist that that's the case. But I think children can be serious if they're interested. Sorry.
Yeah, maybe it's a personal question. Why to meditate? I guess there are different reasons, and definitely I feel like the first step is what we were talking about before. If you do it right, in quotes, maybe there is an exposure of all this accumulation of conditioning that is directing your life, and that might be enough to just worthwhile to do it.
Like you said, the glimpse is
glimpse,
like enough
yeah.
to see how divided and conflictual our everyday lives are.
Yeah. And then from there, probably there is much more to explore, but even at that level, I think there is, it's worth it. And from Krishnamurti perspective, and that's my, understanding, always personal, is that what you were mentioning before, John, meditation seems to be your whole life, as opposed to let's not meditate, right? Like if you have that seriousness, whatever that is, that you think this is important.
It's in the
meditation
frying
is
of the egg, the brushing of the teeth,
right.
taking a shower,
Yeah.
whatever. Not
You
just
don't
in the
see that,
bathroom,
right?
but like everywhere.
Yeah.
Walking.
And ending conflict.
Right.
The original conflict.
Much of the precepts of suffering, there's a term called dukkha. It comes from the Pali word the Buddha used, and it's called suffering. But Krishnamurti addresses this as freedom from the known. So when you go into that space, and you're not carrying the past or the karma, you're in emptiness, and you move into an accelerated experience of being in the state of meditation. And we talked a little about this yesterday at the quantum in the morning, where they talked about the quantum mind and physics, but today with AI, it boils down to quantum computing, the brain, and physiology, and interspace of those two things, which is your memory driving your patterns.
Thank you.
Something I wanted to say, which is indirectly related to AI, is, there's a very popular discussion going on about simulation. Do we live in a simulation? And even, physicists take this question seriously. Like, is a higher race creating us digitally or otherwise? And I don't know anything, I don't really have a feeling for that, other than to say that suggests that we are living in a simulation of our own making, and that's the most important question in front of us right now, which is, what we've just talked about.
There are 4 different phrases related to meditation that I'm just curious about. One is Om versus Ong, like O-N-G versus A-U-M. And then no mud, no lotus. Like what does that phrase mean? As well as namaste versus namaskar.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was the first one? Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I can hear you. It's all right.
Om versus Ong.
How they spelled?
A-U-M.
And
And the
O-M?
second is O-N-G.
O-M-G?
O-N-G.
Om?
Om?
I've heard of O-M. A-U-M. They're the same thing as far as I know.
A-U-M and then O-N-G, like Nancy. O-N-G.
Ong.
What does Krishnamurti Foundation
I've never heard of Ong.
It
do in
reminds me
terms of
the
approaching
Pepsi-Cola
those
thing.
questions?
He did not approach those questions because those come from religions or religious identities that he didn't interact with, which doesn't mean he didn't meditate, of course, and I know those are like Tibetan chants, and I think Namaste and Namaskar are just different languages. One's Sanskrit and one's maybe Pali or something, but they're the exact same. What exists in me exists in you, kind of a thing.
Namaskar is a Bengali word.
Bengali. But it means namaste.
It came from Sanskrit, but introduction in Hindi. And Namaskar is a Bengali.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Maybe you could talk about maybe why Krishnamurti didn't, in particular, include that in his public talks or teachings, or why he didn't get into those types of specifics of words or meditation techniques or Om, or why
Well, again,
not?
like I said earlier, if you're doing meditation, it's not meditation. If meditation is doing you, you're coming from the other shore. If you're doing it, you're coming from this shore.
Didn't
That's
he say
flat out it.
something like you could be saying Pepsi?
Right.
It was
Coca-Cola,
Coca-Cola, and
Yeah.
He did love to do Sanskrit chanting. There's no real hardcore, limitations to any of this. You can Om and it's fine or not fine. It doesn't, as long as you don't depend on it or identify it or use it as some kind of identification thing that you feel if you don't have it, you're gonna be less. And growing up through the mud with the lotus is, I sense it's saying that, literally a lotus flower grows up through the mud in a pond, right? But when it gets to the water, it's completely clean as a beautiful lotus flower. But it has to come through the mud to do that. So that's suffering to here, and there's no relation to the mud when it flowers, but it did start there. And in a way, the mud sort of fueled the meditation for a while. Or that would be my...
Since we mentioned AI, I am actually curious to see what is the question that AI has for
yeah.
This is like
Yeah.
playing the
This is-
chess computer.
This
or
is like we have a new being now.
Well, let me
I
just
can't
read
answer it. I lose.
Let's see.
One of your slides read, "Fear is an extraordinary jewel." Krishnamurti often spoke of fear as something to observe without escape, not to conquer, but to see completely. What might it mean to treat fear not as an obstacle, but as something with its own illuminating quality? Is that even possible without distorting it?
I was wrong. We are living in a simulation. They ask such great questions,
Good
man.
question.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, great question.
I think
My
that,
whole understanding of that is this: that fear is manifest. It's thought. Thought is manifest. It has a physical, chemical, physiological component to it. Awareness is unmanifest. It's energy. The matter aspect of fear gives shape in content, as content in consciousness, gives shape for that moment to the unmanifest, to awareness, if it's non-dual at that point. If I'm not fighting my fear, if I'm not running from my fear, if I'm not, if it's just fear in consciousness, one movement, then that fear has a physical shape, and the unmanifest now has a certain shape for a moment where they interact, and that was that one movement where I say both fear and perception are the what is at that point as one movement. The fear is illuminated, but it's illuminated by awareness, and for that one moment, awareness has shape. Again, those are words alluding to something. I see inside. I see the shape of it. I see the reality of insight, as well as the truth about fear when it's illuminated. Did it say that was okay?
I don't know.
Said yes, very good. So we've just got about 3 minutes left, and I wanted to at least have one of the questions from the online audience read. Can choiceless awareness be confused with passivity or detachment? How can we distinguish genuine observation from withdrawal?
Krishnamurti called choiceless awareness a peculiar alert passivity.
Alert?
Peculiar alert passivity, kind of a poetic description. But can it be confused with what was the words? Detachment?
How can we distinguish genuine observation from withdrawal?
Withdrawal. Go ahead. Got that one.
Well, maybe passion is involved somehow in choiceless awareness, where it wouldn't be in withdrawal. I'm not saying I know exactly what passion is, but he seemed to talk about that energy. Your first video you showed, it was meditation as this kind of he was getting at this fundamental energy before something, you even know what something is. So withdrawal seems to have some knowledge in it of I am separating away from something. It seems to lack a kind of passion. Maybe that's, what do you think?
It's an escape.
I mean, maybe
in a way.
the withdrawal is a
escape,
reaction of
or
some
movement.
sort. Yeah.
It's not being detected, or there's no sensitivity.
The difference is stark. So if you can't see it, then you are sleeping or something.
So the same person actually had a really good follow-up question, if we have a minute or two. In everyday situations, especially under emotional pressure, how do we stay with awareness without slipping into judgment or resistance?
A mantra? No.
I was just going to say, I don't even know if it's possible to not slip into those things. Maybe it's just being aware that it's happening and seeing that.
Like the awareness of that thing. You're just aware with whatever is
Yeah.
happening in your life. And that's what he's saying, that's what he's talking about.
Right.
It's like dying in each moment to something to a concept or to an opinion, to a judgment.
Yeah.
You're observing your own judgment while you're going through life. And that's meditation.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Beautiful.
you're judging, but you're observing that judgment, and then that judgment stops.
Could they hear that in the chat?
Yeah, it's all
Oh, they could.
That's a good
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
finish point.
Great.
Yeah, it's time for lunch.
Time for lunch.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.